Okay, well, let's see if we can't assemble this gearbox at least partially. Another trial fit here. I've got everything situated, I think, and smoothed up and ready to bolt together for a trial fit. We want to get the chain length right, find out if we're going to have to put an idler on here or not. So this is our lower shaft. Now I've made a couple of spacers to space the gears or the sprockets up off the bottom of the gearbox. I'm not going to worry about a spacer here. We're going to just set our preload here. But this will prevent a gear coming loose or a sprocket coming loose and settling down into the bottom of the gearbox, grinding away there, whatever the case may be. And we'll probably put another spacer underneath between our pulley and our sprocket that goes on the bottom. And on one of them, I think this goes in the center boss or the bigger boss. I think this one sits on here. Either this way or this way, I'm not sure. But I think we'll probably put a spacer in between there too, just to set those heights. So we've got those ready to go together. These spacers are two different thicknesses. This one's a 1/4 inch thinner, just because the sprocket head that sits on here, the boss sits down about 1/4 inch on it. So I just shortened this one up. But we've got it set up on our precision 4/6 blocks here. And this will be the bottom one. We'll have to find us a little spacer or set them down so that they'll set on there. Got our spacer on there. We put our keyway in or our key in. And then we're going to set our sprocket down on top just like yay. And it will sit there. Those set screws up snug, and our other one goes in the bottom here. Our key will go in there like that. Just like that. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be a problem getting everything aligned with the chain on there. I guess we can hold it pretty well in plane. It'll be hard telling if we've got everything situated right without having the upper housing on. Fits right in there. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Let's cut it. Actually cut it a couple lengths too long here. I normally say we're going to start the morning off with, but we've already started the morning several hours ago. Working on the gearbox. Today I plan on getting it basically finished up. You know, I've still got to fit the pulleys to the bottom and things like that, but my intent is to finish the gearbox completely. Now, I've had it together and apart several times, and I started to record it and was having to take it apart, put it back together, refit stuff, so we're going to pick it up from here. I've got all the bolts back out of it. We're going to pull the shafts out, and we're going to disassemble the gearbox now. And I'll tell you what I'm changing and what I'm doing with it. Everything looks pretty good. The chain inside, I didn't want to use an idler sprocket if I didn't have to. And going off the dimensions and running off the DRO, it should have been right on, and I think it would run, but it's just a little bit tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a half link in it. And I'll show you those if you're not familiar with it. But we've got our length of chain right. Other than to add this little half link, I think we'll take care of it, take care of any binding. And it's just a little bit of things not being 100% perfectly aligned. So we're going to go ahead and pull it apart. I'll show you that off camera. And then when we go back to do final assembly and put it together, we'll show at least a part of that. Pulled out all the bolts. These are our top nuts to release the top part of the shaft. And there's that nut off, and then the bearing should come out, except it's going to be tight there. So when we pull the cap off, they'll come loose. Same way with the center bearing, or center shaft, it comes apart just like that. I'm going to shorten these shafts up too. They don't need to be this long. I left them extra long, but they're too long, so I can take off about 1.5 inches of them, it looks like. And if we get our little screwdriver in here to start prying this up. Dowel pins. There's the first one. And there's the second one. So now we can take our bearings out. And probably if I would have gone ahead and lubed these up, they probably would have been just fine with a little bit of lube in there, but there's a little more binding that I thought really should have been in there. So if we just add a half link, I think that'll take care of it. So I'm pretty confident that we've got everything to the point where it's going together the way it should. So I'm going to go ahead and wash this all up while we've got it apart and go ahead and throw a coat of paint on it. There's our upper half off. I think we got the pressure washer to pressure wash that. And here's our sprocket and chain, the way it sets in there. And that all looks good to me. Like I say, just a little bit tight when you put it in the bearing. So what happens is we've got a little half link here. And that's exactly what it does, is it adds 1/2 a link, where when you put a master link or a connection link in here, which is right here, you have to put it on 2 of the smaller pieces of the chain, or 2 of the inside links is where it connects. And what a half link does is it just extends it. We don't want to lose either the little cotter key or the pin that goes in it. If I can get them out, that's why I kind of avoided opening this up until I was ready to use it, but that's okay, we'll put it on right away here. So normally with a standard link, you would have to have 2 of these facing each other. So where I cut this one off to get what I thought was a length, then we cut off 2 more links. Why? So you have 2 of these, your master link goes up in between, and then there's a circlip on the top. what a half link does is it puts that on just like that, and you've extended it that one more tooth. So that's what we're going to do here, and I think that will take care of any binding we've got. I'm going to assume that's right and not do anything else, not do another trial assembly. When we put it together, why, that's going to be it, and I think it'll be fine. Okay, hopefully this is final assembly, but I thought you might like to take a look. I did take my little half link out, it was just too much, so hopefully this is going to align right. You can't really tell until you get the bearings in. Got the bottom carriers are all mounted, got them painted up, got the outside of the housing painted up. Have the gear on there, both gears on there. We're ready to put the top half on. We've got bearings greased in the bottom. We're going to put the top half on, grease the bearings there, drop them in, and see what we got. So that's the way it's going. So this half will go right on here. Just like that. Looks like we're situated pretty good there. I'm going to go ahead and I've got to grab some flat washers. We're going to go ahead and bolt this together with the idea that this is going to be the last time it's bolted together. I'm going to put flat washers underneath here. I was going to put lock washers on, but I discover I'm out of lock washers, so we'll have to go pick up some of them and change them later. And I don't know that it's necessary. You know, they're going to lock into these halves well enough to where I don't think it's going to be an issue at all. So, let me grab the carriers. And this should be number 2 right here. Should sit in there like that. Number 1 will sit in there like that. And we might as well bolt these down first, because we need to pre-tension those before we can put the hubcaps on. So let me go ahead and button this up, and I'll bring you back once we drop the bearings in and preload it. Alright, well, comedy of errors here. I got a little bit of a glitch in the gearbox yet, and I have gone ahead and put it together except for the hubcaps on top. A little bit of a glitch, and I think it's in the gear that I've got in there, in the bigger gear. So runs pretty smooth, but then pretty soon we've got a little catch, and I think I've got a little bit of warpage in that gear. So maybe it'll run in, maybe I'll change it out at some point in time. Anyway, this is the way the bottom of it looks, and our bigger pulley goes on in the, or our chain drive goes on down here, right here. Well, what's the deal? Oh, where I shortened them up, I've evidently got a little bit of a burr right there on that that's not wanting to clear. This has been kind of a hassle here. Let's try this other. Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to polish that shaft just a little bit, and so that slides on and off. This will be a cast pulley here. I've got a blank turned out for it already, or cast up for it already, which is this one right here to go there. The pulley that's already on the motor that I'm going to put on here has got a double shiv on it, so I may cast a thicker pulley and do a double shiv there too. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at, and this is the top side. Hubcaps will go on here. I've got both the hubcaps painted up all poorly. So we'll go ahead, finish bolting this down for right now, and then we're going to move on. We've got to cast the 2 pieces of angle that bolt onto here and then bolt up to the 3-inch channel will be welded onto the bottom of the motor body, and that's the next thing to happen, I think. And once I get that done, we can mount the gearbox in place and go ahead, figure out the motor layout, and then do a little bit of rework on the drum itself. So anyway, 1 step closer, 2 steps closer, something. Anyway, bearings are all packed. That's all ready to go, I think. I may run it for a while after we get it going and see if it's going to smooth itself out or if we need to make some adjustments in the gear. Pulley dimensions, there again, I went back and forth on whether I wanted to use that extra half link. I did end up and go back and put it back in, and I think that makes the length just right. So anyway, go ahead, we'll put these hubcaps on, and then we're pretty much done for the day. On the set screws that went in the to lock the collars on, why put a couple little pieces of lead shot underneath there so that we don't mar up those threads. You know, a lot of times you can use brass or a piece of nylon or something, but lead shot works really well. A little piece of lead. There we go. One gearbox. Okay, quick little update today on the sand Muller. I've shot some video previously working on the gearbox. I'll probably put part of that in there. I'm having problems with that gearbox. Everything's right with it, with the exception of when I welded the hub up into the 112 tooth gear, that 35 size gear that goes inside the gearbox. I warped it. So I tried straightening it out. I've screwed around with it, and what I ended up and did is I went down and latched onto another piece of 1/4 inch stock from my local metal supplier because I needed some for the Muller body anyway, and cut me a new, we're going to call it an intermediate piece that actually, I cut the welds off of the hub that I had, put a piece in the weld, and then I cut the center out of the gear itself, and I'm going to center it up and bolt it together. And we'll show you pictures of that when it's all done, which I don't have it done yet. I've been dealing with that the last couple of days, so I basically got tired of screwing with it, so I kind of shifted gears, and I've been working on the Muller body today. So what I've got is, let me bring you down so you can see it. I've got started the modifications on the body itself. And when we had this Muller together before, what we had is I just had a little door that I pulled out right here. It slid right back into the front. Got a couple rails mounted underneath the body of the Muller, and I just pulled it out of the way when I wanted to dump it and slid it back in. Worked okay, but we've changed it now to have a door on it. I'm going to finish building the door, but this is the mounting hardware and the extra reinforcement that goes on the front of the drum to support that. We're going to have a couple of pillow block bearings coming out, is what Steve Chastain calls for. And he calls for aluminum cast bodies. I wasn't going to do that to start with. I think I probably will, but I'm not sure. The only reason I'm really going to do it that way rather than just setting up a weldment to form those is I have to cast the two L angles to mount the gearbox underneath the Muller itself. So I got to make a pattern for that. It won't be any big deal to throw together a quick little pattern for two little bosses. There's no bearings in them or anything. The shafts just run through. So I'll probably do that, and then they bolt onto the front. Now this reinforcement, and then there's arms that go down, and the door swings open this way. So anyway, we'll show that as we progress with it. But this is the reinforcement for it. He shows a couple of another reinforcing fillers that go back in here on both sides just to fill the space. I haven't put those in yet because I'm going to, he calls to drill and tap these to mount your pillow blocks. I don't know if that 1/4 inch is really thick enough long term to hold up to that opening and closing. It may not be an issue at all, but I think what I'm probably going to do is once I get everything set up, I'll probably have the bearing bodies drilled. I'll go ahead and match drill into that, and then I'll weld nuts onto the back side so they can be mounted that way, and then I'll go ahead and put those braces in. I've welded this fairly securely pretty much all the way around. You know, it's a fairly big piece of equipment, so once I get it flipped over, well, I'll add some more welds to the bottom. We'll straighten these up and radius these corners a little bit so it's a little bit nicer. I won't whack myself on it. And then I've got to cut the door itself out a little bit bigger than what I've got here. So that's all coming. One of the things I'm not sure about is where I want to mount the gearbox and the motor. He calls for the motor and the gearbox to be mounted off the back. I have gone back and forth, and I'll take suggestions if somebody's got a better idea for what I should do. I'm really thinking that I want to mount it on this left-hand side. Me being right-handed, I've got better access to fill it and everything from that side of the Muller, dump it on the front, but I think I would rather have the gearbox here, gearbox and the motor assembly. The reason being, it adds at least another foot going out whichever direction you go, and I don't know that I want to add another foot onto the back. It's not going to make any difference weight distribution wise. he shows putting some 4x4s underneath. I'll probably put 4x6s up to give it a little cushion and on my unlevel floors and unlevel concrete. Why I think that's a good thing to do. But the chain, or the center of the gearbox, comes out about 19 and change. So it's clear out here, and then the other side of the gearbox is another 8 inches. So we're to about 42 inches off of the center, well, overall length, because we've got a 30-inch drum. So we're out here about 42 inches full width, and I think I'd rather, you know, you're giving up wall space if you do that, or floor space horizontally, but if you mount it behind while you're moving it way out, then I think that's probably too far out. So that's kind of my reasoning for doing that. Probably the next thing is going to be to pull at least the Muller. Well, I'm just going to pull the Muller wheel out. I'll flip it over. I've got some more welding to do. Finish fitting the floor, or the door for the drop chute. Mount the 3-inch channel iron that goes underneath to support the gearbox, and I can't mount that until I've got the L angle and the gearbox bolted together, so I can fit those where they're going to go. So it's slowly coming together. The sprocket that I've warped out of shape, why it's I got it straightened back up. Once I got the center cut out of it, I just took it over the hydraulic press, and a few little tweaks, I got it straightened back up, but I couldn't get it straightened out to where it was running satisfactorily to when it was welded up. So I'll get that finished up. I'm not going to worry about filming trying to get that going, but I'll show you some pictures of the finished product. Like I say, it's just about an 8-inch intermediate hub that I've got welded back into the hub, and I'm going to make sure that's true. I'll set that up on the lathe and spin it, make sure everything's running good there, and then we'll run a bolt circle pattern so we can bolt the outer diameter of that sprocket to it. So that'll come out fine, and then it's just reassembling the gearbox. Like I say, I shot a little video of that. I'll show some little bits of that as it goes along, but there was a lot of assembly and disassembly to get that dialed in. So anyway, that's going on. We're making progress with this. We'll get a lot of it finished up over the weekend here. So anyway, that's where we're at. Comments or suggestions, leave them in the comment section for me below. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch.